You ungrateful liar. I trusted you, and you stole from me. Get her out of my sight.
Please, I didn't take anything. Why won't you listen to me?
10 years ago, they dragged her away in handcuffs for a crime she didn't commit. Today, she walked back into their penthouse, not as the girl they destroyed, but as the woman who came to uncover the truth. The rain hammered against the windows of Sterling Tower as Emma Cross stood before the glass doors. Her reflection stared back, older, sharper, unbreakable. Inside those walls, the people who shattered her life continued living as if justice didn't exist. But Emma remembered everything. The accusations, the trial, the prison cell, the blow that left her partially deaf. And most of all, she remembered him. Ryan Sterling, the man she loved, the man who believed the lies. Her fingers brushed her left ear, a reminder of what they took from her. But they had miscalculated one crucial detail. Her partial deafness wasn't a weakness. It was her weapon. People spoke freely around her, believing she lived in silence. That blind assumption would be their downfall. Emma pushed the door open and stepped inside. The city thought she was broken. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And most important thing, turn your notification bell so you can get informed when I dropped another amazing story. Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments. What would you do if your spouse tried to kill you and you survive? Will you take a revenge or disappear forever? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tales with Francis Stories. Please subscribe and leave a comment. It truly means the world to us. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and loved ones, and turn on your post notifications so you never miss a new story. Thank you for supporting us. The city of Seattle was cold that morning. Not the kind of cold that brushed the skin, but the kind that crawled into the heart and whispered old memories back to life. Emma Cross tightened her coat as she approached Sterling Tower. The gleaming skyscraper dominated the skyline, a monument to wealth and power. A place that once felt magical, a place that would have been her home if life had been kind. She stopped at the entrance, her breath forming clouds in the crisp air. 10 years. 10 years since she stood in this exact spot, begging, shaking, pleading through tears as police officers dragged her away. 10 years since she was accused of stealing confidential company files she had never even touched. 10 years since her hearing was damaged from a blow she never saw coming. 10 years since she lost Ryan Sterling, the man she once believed was her soulmate. Her fingers trembled as she touched her left ear. Partially deaf. Not silent, not broken, just altered. She could hear loud voices, clear tones, footsteps, arguments, secrets spoken too boldly. Soft whispers, faint tones, murmured lies. Those slipped away like smoke. People spoke freely around her, believing she lived in silence. That blind assumption was her best weapon. Emma inhaled deeply and pushed through the revolving doors. The lobby was exactly as she remembered. Polished marble floors, chrome accents, the scent of expensive coffee and fresh flowers. A world far too beautiful to contain the ugliness it hid. A woman in a crisp suit approached her. "You're the new assistant? The one with the hearing impairment?" Emma nodded. The woman shrugged. "Good. That means you'll mind your own business. Follow me." Emma entered the executive floor, and her throat tightened. She passed the corporate portraits lining the hallway. She promised herself not to look. She tried. She failed. That's when she saw it. Victoria Chun. Perfect hair. Perfect smile. Perfect lie. Her manicured hand rested on Ryan's shoulder in the photograph. Underneath was a gold nameplate. Ryan Sterling and Victoria Chun. Engaged. Something sharp twisted inside Emma. Not jealousy, not longing, betrayal. Before she could catch her breath, a voice cut through the air. "Who's the new assistant?" Her heart stilled. Ryan. Older now. Sharper jaw. Colder eyes. A man who wore success like armor. But beneath all that, she recognized him. Her first love, her last heartbreak. The woman in the suit stepped forward. "She has a hearing impairment, Mr. Sterling. The agency sent her. Highly qualified." Ryan's gaze lingered on Emma. Slow, searching, almost gentle, like a quiet memory tried to push its way to the surface. Emma lowered her eyes. She wasn't ready. Not yet. A sharp voice interrupted from behind him. Oh, good. The assistant is here. Victoria Chun glided into the hallway. Designer dress, diamonds screaming wealth, and eyes screaming venom. She has a hearing impairment, right? Victoria asked. Yes, ma'am. Perfect. Victoria smirked. Then she won't hear anything she shouldn't. Emma heard every syllable. Her fingers coiled into her palms. Victoria moved closer, inspecting her the way someone inspected an object, not a human. People with disabilities need to be extra careful, she said loudly. Keep her away from anything confidential. Emma swallowed hard, but not from humiliation, from fury. If only Victoria knew. Her downfall was standing 2 feet away. Ryan watched the exchange with an unreadable expression. For a moment, his eyes softened when they met Emma's, but the moment passed quickly. He turned and walked toward his office. Get her settled, he instructed over his shoulder. As Victoria led Emma to her workstation, she leaned close and whispered, Stay out of my way, and we'll get along just fine. Emma didn't respond. She simply nodded, the picture of compliance. But inside, her mind was calculating. 10 years she had waited for this moment. 10 years to gather evidence, to build a new identity, to become strong enough to face them again. The truth had been buried for a decade, hidden beneath lies and manipulation. But Emma hadn't returned for revenge alone. She had returned for justice. And she would not leave until everyone knew what really happened that night. As she sat at her new desk, surrounded by the hum of computers and muted conversations, Emma allowed herself a small, cold smile. The game had begun, and this time, she was playing to win. Days passed. Emma worked quietly, unnoticed, listening carefully. That was when she heard it. Victoria's voice, sharp and irritated, leaked through a half-open conference room door. What do you mean she's out already? Emma froze in the hallway, pretending to organize files on a nearby cart. Victoria continued, her tone dripping with venom. No, listen. Ryan thinks she ran off with that tech startup guy and stole the files. Yes, he believed it. I made sure he did. Emma's breath caught in her throat. He barely remembers her now, Victoria said with satisfaction. I erased her from his life. Exactly what I wanted. The world tilted. The fluorescent lights seemed too bright. Emma's heart shattered, not from pain, but from clarity. Ryan hadn't abandoned her. He had been manipulated, blindfolded by lies fed to him by the woman he now planned to marry. All those years in prison, she had waited for him to come, to fight for her, to believe in her innocence. But he never did, and now she understood why. Her breath came out shallow. For the first time in 10 years, Emma's rage had a name, Victoria Chun, and she knew exactly what she had to do. Over the following weeks, Emma observed everything. She noticed patterns that others missed, small details that revealed painful truths. Ryan hardly stayed in the penthouse he shared with Victoria. After that first day, Emma barely saw him there. Not because of work meetings, not because of business trips, but because he was avoiding something. Outside the office, Ryan looked like a man with his life perfectly aligned, confident, calculated, unshakable. But inside these walls, inside the space that should have been his sanctuary, he was a man haunted by something he couldn't name. When he did come home, Emma saw it the moment he walked in. The stiffness in his shoulders, the exhaustion behind his eyes, the heaviness that seemed to press down on his chest. Though she pretended not to look, her heart still felt every bit of him. One afternoon, Ryan's mother arrived unannounced. Margaret Sterling swept into the executive floor like a storm, tall, elegant, commanding. A woman who wielded influence the way others wielded weapons. Emma remembered her from 10 years ago. Proud, calculating, cold. Margaret barely acknowledged the staff. Her heels clicked across the marble floor as she marched toward Ryan's office. Emma was organizing files nearby when the argument began. Ryan, you must set a wedding date. His tired voice followed. Mother, I'm not ready. Not ready. Margaret's voice rose. You've been saying that for months. Victoria is waiting. Her family is waiting. This delay is embarrassing our company's partnership. Emma continued her work quietly, her hands steady, but her attention was razor-sharp. "The merger depends on this marriage," Margaret snapped. "Do you understand what's at stake?" Ryan's response was barely audible. "I understand perfectly." "Then act like it." Margaret's voice cracked with frustration. "Stop living in the past. That girl is gone. She betrayed you. Accept it and move on." Emma's chest tightened. Every word was a knife, but she remained perfectly still, perfectly silent. The office door opened, and Margaret stormed out without another word. As she passed Emma, she didn't even glance in her direction. To Margaret Sterling, assistants were invisible, but that invisibility was precisely what Emma needed. That evening, Emma stayed late at the office. Most of the staff had left, and the floor was quiet except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of cleaning crews. She made her way to the records room, a secure area where the company kept archive files. Her new employee credentials gave her basic access, enough to get through the door. Inside, rows of filing cabinets stretched before her. She moved quickly, efficiently, searching for anything related to the theft that had destroyed her life. It took nearly 2 hours, but she finally found it. A thin folder labeled Security Incident, March 2015. Emma's hands shook as she opened it. Inside were police reports, witness statements, and security footage logs. But what caught her attention was a handwritten note paper-clipped to the top page. The handwriting was unmistakably victorious. "Ensure the surveillance footage from 9 p.m. to midnight is corrupted. The backup drive needs to disappear before the investigation begins." Emma's vision blurred. Here was proof, concrete evidence that Victoria had orchestrated the entire scheme. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. She needed more. She needed to understand the full scope of what had been done to her and why. As she carefully photographed each document with her phone, Emma made a silent promise to herself. This was only the beginning. Victoria Chun had spent 10 years believing she had won. She was about to discover how wrong she was. Emma couldn't sleep that night. The documents she had discovered played on repeat in her mind, but they raised more questions than they answered. Why had Victoria framed her? What did she have to gain? And most importantly, who else was involved? The next morning, Emma returned to work with renewed determination. She moved through her tasks mechanically, all while watching, listening, waiting for the next piece of the puzzle. It came sooner than expected. Ryan's mother returned to the office late in the afternoon. This time, she didn't go to Ryan's office. Instead, she pulled Victoria into a private conference room. Emma happened to be restocking supplies in the adjacent storage room. The walls were thin, and the conference room door didn't close completely. She positioned herself near the shared wall and listened. "Victoria, you must move faster." Margaret's voice was sharp with urgency. "That girl just got released from prison. If she finds Ryan, if he discovers what we did 10 years ago, we're finished. He will never forgive us." Emma's breath stopped. Her hands turned cold. Margaret continued, her voice trembling with fear and anger. "Remember, this was all your idea. So act quickly before everything we did to separate them is exposed." Emma's legs nearly gave out. Everything we did, not Victoria alone, not a mistake, not an accident, a conspiracy, a plan, a betrayal that reached higher than she had imagined. Victoria's laugh was soft, wicked, confident. "Oh, trust me, Mrs. Sterling. I'm handling it. That assistant can never figure out who she's working for. And even if she did, who would believe someone with a criminal record?" Emma pressed a hand to her mouth, holding back a sound of anguish. "Besides," Victoria continued, "I made sure she understood in prison to stay away. The accident that damaged her hearing was just a warning. If she had been smarter, she would have stayed hidden." Emma's world stopped. The accident that left her partially deaf, the attack in prison that the guards had dismissed as a random incident. It had all been orchestrated by Victoria, and Ryan's own mother had been part of it. Part of the reason Emma's life was destroyed. For the first time, Emma understood the full scope of what she was facing. She hadn't just been defeated by lies. She had been defeated by the two women Ryan trusted most, his fiancée and his mother. She pressed her back against the wall, forcing herself to breathe slowly, to think clearly. Rage wouldn't help her now. She needed strategy. She needed patience. But most of all, she needed irrefutable proof. Over the next few days, Emma began piecing together the conspiracy. She cross-referenced dates, emails, and meeting schedules. She discovered that the theft she had been blamed for coincided perfectly with a major contract negotiation between Sterling Tech and Shin Industries, Victoria's family company. The stolen files contained sensitive information about Sterling Tech's proprietary software, information that would have given Shin Industries a significant advantage in negotiations. But the files were never actually stolen. They were leaked, deliberately, by Victoria herself. Emma had been the perfect scapegoat, a junior assistant with access but no power to defend herself. The frame job had served multiple purposes. It removed Emma from Ryan's life. It forced Ryan to rely more heavily on his mother for support during the crisis, and it positioned Victoria as his loyal ally during a difficult time. It was brilliant in its cruelty. Emma also discovered something else. Victoria wasn't just manipulative. She had a secret that could destroy everything she had built. It started with a pattern Emma noticed in Victoria's calendar. Every Thursday afternoon, Victoria left the office for exactly 2 hours. Her official schedule claimed she was visiting her family, but Emma's instincts told her otherwise. So one Thursday, Emma followed her. She watched Victoria slip out of Sterling Tower and into a waiting car. Not her usual driver, but a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. Emma quickly hailed a cab and instructed the driver to follow at a distance. The car led them across the city to an upscale neighborhood in Capitol Hill. Victoria emerged and walked into a boutique apartment building, glancing around nervously before entering. Emma waited 15 minutes before approaching. Through the building's glass doors, she could see Victoria in the lobby, kissing a man who definitely wasn't Ryan Sterling. Emma's hands trembled as she raised her phone and began recording. She captured Victoria's secret lover, their intimate embrace, the way Victoria laughed. A genuine laugh Emma had never seen her give Ryan. This was it, the leverage she needed. But Emma knew she had to be careful. Revealing this information too soon would alert Victoria that someone was watching. She needed to gather more evidence to build an unassailable case. The game was becoming more dangerous. But Emma was no longer the frightened girl who had been dragged away in handcuffs. She was a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The following week, Ryan returned home unexpectedly early. Emma was working in the penthouse office, organizing files that Victoria had carelessly left scattered across the desk. She heard the elevator doors open and quickly moved toward the hallway, intending to make herself scarce. But before she could leave, Ryan stepped into view. He looked exhausted. His tie was loosened, his usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. There was something defeated in his posture that made Emma's heart ache despite everything. "You're still here," he said, surprised. Emma nodded, keeping her eyes lowered. Ryan walked past her toward the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. The Seattle skyline glittered in the evening light, but he seemed to see none of it. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" he asked suddenly. Emma froze. Was he talking to her, or just thinking aloud? When she didn't respond, Ryan turned slightly. "Sorry, I forgot you can't." He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. Emma could hear him perfectly. His voice was clear and close, but she maintained her silence. This was the moment she needed to continue being invisible. Ryan sighed and walked toward his private study. But as he passed the small garden terrace attached to the penthouse, he stopped abruptly. The evening light cast a golden glow across the space. And there, tending to the plants that Victoria always neglected, was Emma. She stood in profile, carefully trimming dead leaves from a flowering plant. The light caught her face at just the right angle, and something about the scene slammed into Ryan like a physical blow. Amelia. He saw her there, in that exact spot 10 years ago, laughing in the sunlight, waiting for him, her smile bright and genuine, untouched by the betrayal that would soon destroy them both. His breath caught, his vision blurred. "Amelia," he whispered. Emma's body tensed. She hadn't expected him to say that name. Not yet. Not here. Ryan took an unsteady step toward her. "I don't know why," he murmured, his voice cracking, "but you remind me of someone." Emma's heart hammered her chest. She wanted to turn around, to reveal herself, to demand answers. But the timing wasn't right. Before she could react, before she could hide, Ryan swayed dangerously. His vision darkened at the edges. The stress, the lack of sleep, the weight of memories he couldn't escape, it all crashed over him at once. He collapsed. Emma spun around just in time to catch him. Shock flooded through her as Ryan's weight fell into her arms. His head rested against her shoulder, his breathing uneven and shallow. For a brief moment, the universe gave her the closeness she had been avoiding. She could smell his cologne, feel the warmth of his body, sense the vulnerability he never showed the world. She held him, her own breathing ragged, until his breathing began to steady. Carefully, Emma guided him to the nearby sofa. She loosened his tie further and brought him water from the kitchen. Her hands shook as she set the glass on the table beside him. Ryan's eyes fluttered half open. Through his haze, he saw her face hovering above his, concerned, gentle, familiar in a way that made his chest ache. "Why?" he whispered hoarsely. "Why do I feel safe with you?" Emma looked away quickly. Her heart was betraying her, flooding with emotions she had tried so hard to lock away. But her mission came first. She couldn't let feelings derail everything she had worked toward. She stood and began to back away, but Ryan's hand shot out and caught her wrist. His grip was weak but insistent. "Please," he said softly, "don't go yet." Emma froze. She could pull away. She should pull away. But something in his voice, the raw need, the loneliness, kept her rooted to the spot. They stayed like that for several moments, Ryan's hand around her wrist, Emma standing above him, both of them suspended in a moment that felt stolen from time. Finally, Ryan's grip loosened as consciousness fully returned. He sat up slowly, rubbing his face. "I'm sorry," he said, embarrassed. "I don't know what happened. I haven't been sleeping well." Emma nodded and quickly moved away, putting professional distance between them once more. Ryan watched her go, confusion and something deeper, something like recognition, flickering in his eyes. After Emma left the room, Ryan sat alone in the dimness of the penthouse. His hands were shaking. His mind was racing. That feeling of safety, that inexplicable sense of home, the way she moved, the way she held him, even the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching. It all reminded him of Amelia, the woman he had lost, the woman he had tried so hard to forget. But forgetting Amelia was like trying to forget how to breathe. No matter how much time passed, she remained etched into his soul. Ryan stood and walked to his desk. In a locked bottom drawer, hidden from Victoria and his mother and everyone else, was a single photograph. Amelia, smiling up at him from 10 years ago. Young, innocent, trusting. He traced the outline of her face with his finger. "Where are you?" he whispered to the photograph. "Are you alive? Are you happy? Did you really betray me?" The questions had haunted him for a decade. And now, somehow, they felt more urgent than ever. Emma couldn't stop thinking about what had happened with Ryan. The way he looked at her, the way he whispered Amelia's name, the way he held onto her wrist as if she were the only solid thing in his crumbling world. But she forced herself to refocus. Emotions were dangerous. They clouded judgment, and she needed absolute clarity for what came next. The next day, Emma kept her distance from Ryan and focused entirely on Victoria. She had the video evidence of Victoria's affair, but she needed more. She needed to understand the full extent of Victoria's plans. That opportunity came sooner than expected. Victoria had lied to Ryan, claiming she was visiting her family for a long weekend. But Emma knew better. She watched Victoria leave Sterling Tower on Friday afternoon, designer luggage in hand, heading not toward the airport, but toward Capitol Hill. Emma followed at a careful distance. This time, Victoria's secret lover met her outside the apartment building. Emma finally got a clear view of him, a handsome man in his early 30s, dressed in expensive casual wear, driving a Tesla. Emma recorded everything. Victoria running into his arms. Their kiss. The way he lifted her off her feet and spun her around. The laughter. The joy that Victoria never showed Ryan. But what Emma heard next made her blood run cold. She had positioned herself at a nearby cafe with outdoor seating, close enough to observe without being noticed. Victoria and her lover sat on the building's front steps for a moment, talking in voices just loud enough for Emma to catch fragments. "Did you get the prescription?" Victoria asked. The man nodded. "It's all arranged. 1 month of fertility treatments, and you'll be pregnant for sure." Victoria smiled, a calculating expression that sent chills down Emma's spine. "Perfect. Once I'm pregnant, Ryan will have no choice but to marry me immediately. His mother will insist on it." "And after the wedding?" the man asked. Victoria leaned close to him. "After the wedding, we wait. Maybe a year, maybe 2. Then we'll arrange an accident for Ryan. Tragic, but these things happen. And I'll inherit everything as his widow." Emma's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped her phone. This wasn't just manipulation. This wasn't just infidelity. This was conspiracy to commit murder. She had to warn Ryan immediately. But as Emma started to stand, rationality kicked in. If she went to Ryan now with this information, what proof did she have? A video of an affair? Recorded conversation fragments? Victoria could claim the audio was doctored. She could deny everything. And with Margaret Sterling backing her, Ryan might not believe it. No, Emma needed something more concrete, something undeniable. She spent the weekend researching, using her old contacts from before prison, tech-savvy friends who owed her favors. Emma dug into Victoria's background more deeply than ever. What she discovered was stunning. Victoria, Chen wasn't who she claimed to be. Her family's company, Chen Industries, was drowning in debt. The partnership with Sterling Tech wasn't just valuable. It was Chen Industries' last hope for survival. Victoria's father had arranged the engagement with Ryan specifically to save his company. But Victoria herself had darker motivations. She saw Ryan not as a partner, but as a target, a wealthy man whose assets she could eventually control. Emma also discovered that Victoria had a history. 2 previous relationships, both with wealthy men, both ending mysteriously. One man had died in a car accident shortly after they became engaged. The other had nearly died from food poisoning before discovering Victoria had been slowly poisoning him. Neither man had pressed charges, likely due to lack of concrete evidence or fear scandal. But the patterns were there, clear as day to anyone who knew where to look. Emma compiled everything into a detailed file. The affair, the fertility treatment plan, the murder conspiracy, the history of targeting wealthy men, the financial desperation of Chen Industries. But she still needed one more piece, something that would tie Victoria directly to Emma's own false imprisonment. That opportunity came on Monday morning. Emma was cleaning Victoria's private office when she noticed something unusual. Victoria had been careless, leaving her laptop unlocked while she stepped out for a coffee meeting. Emma's heart pounded as she quickly sat down at the desk. She had maybe 10 minutes before Victoria returned. She navigated to Victoria's email archives and began searching for keywords. Amelia, theft, files, police. And there it was. An email thread from 10 years ago between Victoria and Margaret Sterling. "The girl is getting too close to Ryan. We need to remove her permanently. I have a plan." Margaret's response, "Whatever it takes. My son's future depends on marrying into the right family." Victoria's reply included an attachment, a forged letter, supposedly written by Emma, confessing to the theft and claiming she was running away with another man. Emma's vision blurred with tears. Here was the proof, the smoking gun, the irrefutable evidence that would destroy both Victoria and Margaret Sterling. She quickly forwarded the emails to her personal encrypted account, then cleared the browsing history. Just as she stood up from the desk, she heard footsteps approaching. Victoria walked in, coffee in hand, and stopped when she saw Emma near her desk. "What are you doing in here?" Her voice was sharp, suspicious. Emma pointed to the trash can she had been emptying, her face blank and innocent. Victoria studied her for a long moment, then waved her hand dismissively. "Get out." Emma left, her heart racing. She had what she needed. Now it was time to plan the final move. That night, Emma barely slept. She lay in her small apartment across the city, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with possibilities. She had the evidence. She had the truth. But simply exposing Victoria wasn't enough. Emma needed justice, Real, complete justice that would ensure Victoria and Margaret Sterling could never hurt anyone again. More than that, Emma realized she needed Ryan to discover the truth on his own terms. If she simply handed him evidence, part of him might always wonder if she had manipulated it somehow, if she was seeking revenge rather than revealing reality. No, Ryan needed to see Victoria's true nature with his own eyes. Emma spent the next day carefully crafting her plan. It would require precise timing, a bit of technical skill, and one crucial element. She needed Victoria to feel secure enough to reveal herself fully. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Margaret Sterling called an emergency board meeting for Wednesday afternoon. According to the office gossip Emma overheard, Chin Industries had missed a critical payment deadline, and the partnership between the two companies was in jeopardy. Victoria was panicking. Emma could see it in the way she paced her office, in the frantic phone calls with her father, in the way her perfect facade cracked just slightly around the edges. Desperate people made mistakes. Emma was counting on it. On Wednesday morning, Emma accidentally left a folder on Victoria's desk. Inside was a single document, a fake medical report indicating Emma had regained her full hearing after a recent surgery. Emma watched from the hallway as Victoria discovered the folder. She saw the color drain from Victoria's face, saw her hands begin to tremble. If the assistant could hear, then she had heard everything. Every conversation, every secret, every plan. Victoria immediately pulled out her phone and called someone. Emma couldn't hear the conversation from where she stood, but she didn't need to. She had anticipated this exact reaction. Within an hour, Victoria summoned Emma to her office. "I need you to run an errand for me," Victoria said, her voice tight. "Take these documents to Chin Industries headquarters. They're expecting them by noon." Emma nodded obediently, but as she took the envelope, she noticed Victoria watching her with unusual intensity. Something was off. Emma left the building as instructed, but instead of going to Chun Industries, she circled back and entered Sterling Tower through the service entrance. She made her way to the security office, where her friend Marcus worked. Marcus owed Emma a favor from years ago, long before her imprisonment. She had helped his sister get a job when no one else would hire her. "I need your help," Emma said quietly, "and I need you to trust me." 20 minutes later, Marcus had set up a secure live feed from Victoria's office camera directly to Emma's phone. Anything that happened in that office, Emma would see and record. Emma then went to Ryan's floor and waited. She positioned herself in the break room adjacent to his office, close enough to act when needed, but far enough to remain unnoticed. At 2 p.m., exactly as Emma had predicted, Victoria received a visitor. Her secret lover walked into Sterling Tower, bold as daylight, and headed straight for Victoria's office. Through the security feed, Emma watched them embrace. Watched Victoria melt into his arms. Watched them kiss with a passion she never showed Ryan. "Did you take care of the assistant?" the man asked. Victoria smiled coldly. "I sent her across town. By the time she realizes those documents were fake, she'll be hours away. I needed her out of the building. And Sterling, he's in the board meeting. He'll be there for at least another hour." Victoria's smile turned wicked. "Plenty of time for us." Emma felt sick watching them, but she kept recording. Every word, every gesture, every moment of betrayal. But then Victoria said something that made Emma's blood turn to ice. "After the wedding, I'll make sure Ryan has an accident. Something believable. A car crash, maybe, or food poisoning like before." The man laughed. "You're terrible." "I'm practical," Victoria corrected. "Sterling Tech will be mine. The merger will save my father's company. And you and I will finally be together openly, with all the money we could ever want." Emma had everything she needed, but she knew Ryan had to see this himself. She quickly sent an anonymous text to Ryan's personal cell phone, a number she still remembered from a decade ago. "Your fiancé is in her office. You should see what she's really like." Then Emma waited. 5 minutes later, she heard the board meeting door open, heard Ryan's footsteps in the hallway, heard him pause outside Victoria's office. The door was slightly ajar. Emma had made sure of it when she passed by earlier. Ryan pushed it open. The scene before him was devastating. Victoria in another man's arms, her lips on his, her hands in his hair. The intimacy of two people who clearly had done this many times before. Victoria. Ryan's voice was quiet, deadly quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute finality. Victoria spun around, her face draining of all color. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Ryan stood in the doorway, phone in hand, having recorded the last 30 seconds of their conversation. The trap had been sprung perfectly. The silence in Victoria's office was deafening. Ryan stood in the doorway, his face carved from stone. In his hand, his phone still recorded every second. Victoria's lover quickly disentangled himself and took a step back, but it was far too late. Ryan, Victoria's voice cracked. She reached toward him, but he stepped back as if her touch would burn him. Don't. One word, sharp as a blade. Victoria's eyes darted between Ryan and her lover, panic flooding her features. This isn't what it looks like. I can explain. Ryan held up his phone. I heard everything, Victoria. The plan to get pregnant. The plan to arrange an accident for me after the wedding. All of it. Victoria's face went white. Her lips trembled. For the first time in years, her perfect mask completely shattered. You've been lying to me from the beginning, haven't you? Ryan's voice was eerily calm, the kind of calm that comes before a storm. The engagement, the partnership, everything was just a business transaction to you. No, Ryan, I love you. Don't you dare. Ryan's voice finally broke, emotion flooding through. Don't insult me with more lies. Victoria's lover shifted uncomfortably. I should go. Stay exactly where you are, Ryan commanded, his tone leaving no room for argument. He turned back to Victoria. How long? How long have you been planning this? When Victoria didn't answer, Ryan's jaw clenched. I want you out of this building. Out of my life. Now. Ryan, please. Victoria fell to her knees, tears streaming down. Her face. But they looked practiced, calculated. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Think about the merger. Think about our families. Our families? Ryan's laugh was bitter. You mean your bankrupt family company that needed my money to survive? That's what this was always about, wasn't it? Money. Control. Power. He turned to walk away, but Victoria lunged forward and grabbed his leg. Please. I'll change. I'll be better. Just give me another chance. Ryan looked down at her with something between pity and disgust. I wanted to end this engagement months ago, he said quietly. I just didn't have the courage. So thank you for giving me the clarity I needed. He pulled his leg free and walked out without looking back. Victoria remained on the floor, her tears turning from desperate to furious. She slowly stood, her face contorting with rage. That's when she saw Emma standing in the hallway. Everything clicked into place in Victoria's mind. The fake medical report, the perfect timing, the anonymous text to Ryan. You, Victoria hissed. She stormed toward Emma, fury radiating from every pore. It was you. You did this. Emma stood her ground, unflinching. You followed me. You recorded me. You destroyed everything. Victoria's voice rose to a shriek. By now, other employees had gathered, drawn by the commotion. Ryan had stopped at the end of the hallway, watching. Victoria grabbed Emma by the shoulders. Do you even understand what you've done? Do you know who you're dealing with? Emma finally spoke, her voice clear and strong. Do you remember me, Victoria? We used to work together, even though I was just a junior assistant. But you never wanted to see me happy, and you never got over the fact that Ryan chose me. Victoria froze. Her hands fell away. She stumbled backward, her face a mask of shock and dawning horror. No, she whispered. No, you're supposed to be broken, destroyed, gone. Emma's voice was steady. I was. For 10 years, I was exactly what you made me. But I survived, and I came back for the truth. Ryan, who had been watching from down the hall, suddenly went rigid. His face transformed, shock, recognition, disbelief all crashing together. He walked toward them slowly, as if in a dream. Amelia? Her name was barely a whisper on his lips. Emma turned to face him fully. Their eyes met, and in that moment, 10 years dissolved. It's me, she said softly. That's why you were so confused. Your heart recognized me, even when your mind didn't. Ryan's hand came up to his mouth. His eyes filled with tears. Amelia, what happened to you? I was told. His voice broke. There was a letter. You said you ran away with someone else. You said you stole those files. I didn't write any letter, Emma said. I didn't steal anything, and I didn't run away. I was framed, Ryan. Framed, convicted, and sent to prison for a crime I didn't commit. Victoria, realizing everything was crumbling around her, tried desperately to salvage the situation. She's lying. Ryan, don't listen to her. This is all revenge. She's manipulating you just like she manipulated you 10 years ago. But Ryan wasn't looking at Victoria. He was staring at Emma, seeing her clearly for the first time in a decade. Your ear, he said suddenly, noticing the slight hearing aid she wore. What happened? Emma's hand instinctively went to her left ear. An accident in prison. Or at least, that's what I was told to believe. Ryan's expression darkened with understanding. He turned slowly to Victoria. What did you do? Victoria's face betrayed her. Guilt, fear, calculation. And in that moment, Ryan knew. He knew everything. Before Victoria could formulate another lie, the elevator doors opened. Margaret Sterling stepped onto the floor, her heels clicking with authority. She took in the scene. Employees gathered, Victoria disheveled and panicked. Ryan standing before a woman who looked hauntingly familiar. What is going on here? Margaret demanded. Ryan turned to his mother, his expression unreadable. Mother. Perfect timing. Margaret's eyes finally landed on Emma, and she froze mid-step. Color drained from her face as recognition crashed over her. You, Margaret breathed. Yes, Emma said calmly. Me, the girl you destroyed. Margaret quickly composed herself, her mask of authority sliding back into place. I don't know what you're talking about. Ryan, who is this person and why is she causing a disturbance? Don't, Ryan said, his voice low and dangerous. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. Victoria, sensing an opportunity to deflect blame, suddenly spoke up. Ryan, you have to understand. This was all your mother's fault. She said we had to get rid of Amelia. She said it was the only way. Shut up. Margaret snapped at Victoria. But Victoria was in full self-preservation mode now. I told her it was a bad idea. I told her we could find another way. But she insisted. She said Amelia had to disappear or the whole family would be ruined. You lying. Margaret started toward Victoria, but Ryan stepped between them. Is any of this true? Ryan's voice shook as he looked at his mother. Tell me the truth. For once in your life, tell me the truth. Margaret's composure cracked. Her hands trembled. Ryan, you have to understand. That girl was nobody. She came from nothing. She had no family, no connections, no future. She would have dragged you down. She was the woman I loved. Ryan's shout echoed through the office. Employees scattered, giving them space. She was kind and genuine, and she made me happy. And you destroyed her. I was protecting you. Margaret's voice rose to match his. Protecting our family. Protecting everything your father built. By framing an innocent woman? By sending her to prison? Ryan's voice cracked. How could you? You, who came from nothing yourself. You, who used to be in service before you married Dad. You, who always told me to judge people by their character, not their bank account. Margaret flinched as if struck. That's exactly why I did it, she said quietly. Because I know what happens when people marry below their station. I know the struggle, the judgment, the way society treats you. I didn't want that for you. So you became exactly what you hated, Ryan said, devastated. You became the kind of person who would destroy someone just for being poor. Emma had been silent, but now she spoke. It wasn't just about my background. Was it, Mrs. Sterling? Margaret's eyes snapped to her. Emma continued. Ryan was supposed to marry Innichin Industries. That partnership was worth billions. But he fell in love with me instead. And I was worthless to your plans. You don't understand business, Margaret said coldly. I understand betrayal, Emma replied. I understand that you orchestrated my arrest, that you forged a confession letter in my handwriting, that you bribed guards to make sure I had an accident in prison that would leave me damaged enough to stay away even after my release. Ryan's head snapped toward his mother. You did that. You had her hurt. Margaret's silence was answer enough. And the files that were stolen? Emma pressed. The ones I was accused of taking, they were never stolen at all, were they? They were leaked deliberately to Chin Industries to force the partnership negotiation in their favor. Victoria, realizing her own crimes were about to be exposed, tried to slip away toward the elevator. "Don't move," Ryan commanded without looking at her. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Security? I need you to detain Victoria Chun. She's not to leave the building. Also, contact the police. I have evidence of corporate espionage, conspiracy, and attempted fraud." Victoria's knees buckled. "Ryan, please." "I recorded your entire conversation," Ryan said flatly. "Your plan to get pregnant with another man's child. Your plan to fake a paternity test. Your plan to murder me after the wedding. The police will be very interested in all of it." Security guards appeared and took Victoria away. Her screams and pleas echoed down the hallway until the elevator doors closed. Ryan turned back to his mother. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. "How could you? I'm your son." "That's exactly why," Margaret whispered. "Everything I did for you. To protect your future. To ensure you had the life you deserved." "You didn't protect me," Ryan said, tears finally spilling down his cheeks. "You destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. You stole 10 years from both of us. You sent an innocent woman to prison and had her attacked. He took a step back, as if physically distancing himself from her. "I want you to leave," he said quietly. "Leave this building. Leave my life. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear from you. If it weren't for the fact that you're my mother, I would have you arrested alongside Victoria." "Ryan," Margaret reached for him. "Go," he said, his voice breaking. "Before I change my mind." Margaret stood there for a long moment, realizing the full weight of what she had lost. Then, slowly, she turned and walked toward the elevator. Before stepping inside, she looked back at Emma. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "but sorry couldn't undo 10 years. Sorry couldn't heal scars. Sorry couldn't bring back the time that had been stolen." The elevator doors closed. Ryan stood in the middle of his office floor, surrounded by shocked employees, facing the woman he thought he had lost forever. "Amelia," he breathed. And finally, after a decade of lies and pain and separation, they were alone with the truth. The days following Victoria's arrest and Margaret's banishment were a whirlwind of police investigations, media coverage, and legal proceedings. Victoria Chun was formally charged with corporate espionage, conspiracy to commit fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. Her lover was also arrested as an accomplice. Chun Industries, already drowning in debt, collapsed completely when the scandal broke. Margaret Sterling quietly left Seattle. Ryan learned through his attorney that she had moved to Europe, unable to face the consequences of her actions or the son she had irreparably harmed. But amidst all the chaos and justice being served, the most important thing was happening quietly, privately between Ryan and Emma. They didn't rush. They couldn't. 10 years of separation, pain, and betrayal couldn't be healed overnight. Their first real conversation happened 3 days after the truth came out. Ryan had asked Emma to meet him at a small coffee shop far from Sterling Tower, away from prying eyes and cameras. He was already there when she arrived, sitting in a corner booth, looking more vulnerable than she had ever seen him. "Thank you for coming," he said as she sat down. Emma nodded, unsure what to say. "I don't even know where to start," Ryan admitted. He looked at his hands, then back at her. "I'm sorry feels completely inadequate, but I am. I'm so incredibly sorry, Amelia." "Emma," she corrected gently. "I go by Emma now." Amelia felt like someone who died 10 years ago. Ryan's face crumpled with pain. "What they did to you? Why let happen?" "You didn't know," Emma said. "That's the point. They made sure you didn't know." "But I should have fought harder," Ryan insisted. "I should have questioned things. I should have trusted my heart instead of believing lies." Emma was quiet for a moment. "I was angry at you for a long time," she admitted. "Every day in prison, I waited for you to come, to fight for me, to believe in me. And when you never came, I thought you had abandoned me, that everything we had meant nothing." Ryan's tears fell freely now. "It meant everything. You meant everything. He struggled to find words. The evidence seemed so clear. The letter in your handwriting. The witnesses who claimed to see you with someone else. The missing files on your work computer. My mother and Victoria both confirmed the story. I didn't want to believe it, but I was young and stupid, and I let myself be convinced. We were both young, Emma said softly. Too young to fight against people with that much power and determination. They sat in silence for a while, sipping coffee, processing a decade of pain. What happened to you? Ryan finally asked. In prison. After prison. How did you survive? Emma told him everything. The trial she couldn't afford to properly defend. The prison sentence that should have been overturned if she had access to better lawyers. The attack that damaged her hearing. An attack she later discovered had been orchestrated by Victoria to ensure Emma would be too traumatized to ever return. She told him about the small nonprofit organization that helped her after her release, giving her vocational training and temporary housing. About the tech skills she learned from other inmates. About the determination that kept her going even on the darkest days. I never stopped thinking about you, she admitted. Even when I tried to hate you, I couldn't. Part of me always believed that you would have fought for me if you had known the truth. I would have, Ryan said immediately. I would have burned the world down to protect you. I know that now. They began meeting regularly after that. Coffee dates that turned into lunch dates that turned into long walks through the city. Slowly, carefully, they shared their stories from the lost decade. Ryan told her about the depression that had haunted him after she disappeared, about the business successes that felt hollow, about the engagement to Victoria that he had been pressured into and never felt right about. Emma told him about learning to navigate the world as a formerly incarcerated person, about the stigma, the job rejections, the loneliness, about building herself back up from nothing, determined to one day clear her name. Why didn't you come to me immediately? Ryan asked one afternoon as they sat in a park overlooking the city. When you got out, why didn't you just tell me the truth? Because I needed proof, Emma said. If I had come to you with just my word against Victoria's and your mother's, would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was a convicted criminal trying to manipulate you? Ryan wanted to say he would have believed her immediately, but honesty made him pause. I don't know, he admitted. I want to say yes, but... Exactly, Emma said gently. I needed evidence. I needed the truth to be undeniable. And I needed to be strong enough to face you again without falling apart. Are you? Ryan asked quietly. Strong enough? Emma looked at him for a long moment. I'm getting there. Weeks turned into months. Their relationship evolved slowly, naturally. Ryan was patient, never pushing for more than Emma was ready to give. He understood that trust, once shattered, required time and consistent action to rebuild. He supported her through the civil lawsuit she filed against Victoria and the Chun family. He testified on her behalf at the hearing to have her conviction overturned. He was there when the judge finally declared her innocent, clearing her record completely. And Emma, in turn, was there for Ryan as he rebuilt his relationship with his company and his life. She helped him understand that his mother's betrayal didn't define him, and that he could choose to be different, to be better. One evening, 6 months after the truth came out, they stood together on the rooftop terrace of Sterling Tower, the same place where they used to meet in secret 10 years ago. I've been thinking, Ryan said, taking her hand gently, about what comes next. For us. Emma's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. And what did you decide? That I don't want to rush anything, Ryan said. That I want to do this right this time. No pressure from family. No business deals. No lies. Just you and me, figuring out if we can build something real. Emma smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in what felt like forever. I'd like that. I love you, Ryan said softly. I never stopped, even when I thought you had betrayed me. Even when I tried to move on, my heart never let you go. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I love you too. I always did. They kissed under the Seattle stars, a kiss that tasted of hope and healing and second chances. It wasn't the ending of their story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one written by them, for them, with truth as its foundation. 18 months later, Emma stood in the living room of the penthouse she now shared with Ryan, watching the Seattle skyline light up as evening fell. So much had changed. Everything had changed. The legal battles were over. Victoria Chun was serving a 15-year prison sentence for corporate espionage, conspiracy to commit fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. Her lover had also been convicted and imprisoned. Chun Industries had gone bankrupt, their assets liquidated to pay creditors. Margaret Sterling remained in self-imposed exile in France. Ryan had received a few letters from her. Apologies, explanations, pleas for forgiveness. He hadn't responded to any of them. Not yet. Maybe someday he would be ready, but that day hadn't come. Emma had been fully exonerated. Her conviction was overturned, her record expunged. She had received a substantial settlement from the civil lawsuit, money she used to start a non-profit organization that helped formerly incarcerated people rebuild their lives. She also returned to school, completing the degree in computer science that had been interrupted by her arrest. Ryan supported her every step of the way, celebrating her small victories as if they were his own. Their relationship had grown slowly, beautifully. They learned each other all over again, not as the young, naive people they had been, but as adults who had survived darkness and chose light anyway. They went to therapy, both individually and together. They talked about everything, the trauma, the betrayal, the lost years. They cried together. They healed together. And finally, 6 months ago, Ryan had proposed. Not with fanfare or grand gestures, but quietly, on an ordinary Tuesday evening, while they cooked dinner together. "Marry me," he had said simply, holding her hand. Not because of business deals or family pressure or anything else. Just because I love you and I want to spend every day of the rest of my life proving it to you. Emma had said yes through tears of joy. They got married 3 months later in a small, intimate ceremony. No massive guest list. No elaborate production. Just their closest friends. People who had supported them through the darkest times. Margaret wasn't invited. Emma had asked Ryan if he wanted to include her, but he shook his head. "Not yet," he said. "Maybe someday, but not yet." The wedding was perfect in its simplicity. Emma wore a simple ivory dress. Ryan wore a gray suit. They wrote their own vows, promising honesty, patience, and love rebuilt from ruins. When they kissed, sealing their commitment, Emma felt something she hadn't felt in over a decade: complete peace. Now, standing in their home, Emma heard the door open behind her. "Hey," Ryan said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything," Emma said, leaning back against him. "How far we've come. How much has changed." Ryan kissed the top of her head. "Do you have any regrets?" Emma considered the question seriously. "I regret the years we lost, the pain we both went through, but I don't regret fighting for the truth. And I don't regret giving us a second chance." "Neither do I," Ryan said softly. Emma turned in his arms to face him. "There's something I need to tell you." Ryan's expression shifted to concern. "What is it?" Emma took his hand and placed it gently on her stomach, where a barely there curve was just beginning to show. "We're going to have a baby." Ryan's eyes widened. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face, pure, unguarded joy. "Really?" he whispered. "Really," Emma confirmed, her own smile matching his. Ryan dropped to his knees and pressed his forehead against her stomach. "Hi, baby," he whispered. "I'm your dad, and I promise to love you and protect you and be better than my parents were." Emma's tears fell into his hair. "You're going to be an amazing father." "We're going to be amazing parents," Ryan corrected, standing and pulling her close. 3 months later, their daughter was born. They named her Hope, a name that represented everything they had fought for and everything they had become. The day Hope laughed for the first time, Emma understood something profound. She had entered Sterling Tower seeking justice. But what she found instead was truth, healing, and a love she thought she had lost forever. On quiet mornings when sunlight spilled gently across their living room and Ryan held Hope close while Emma made breakfast, she would stop and breathe in the moment. A decade ago, that building had broken her. Now it housed the company where she worked as chief technology officer, using her skills to innovate and create. A decade ago, she walked in as an assistant with a wounded heart. Now she walked through those halls as an executive, a wife, a mother, and a woman who had reclaimed her life on her own terms. Justice had brought her back. Truth had set her free. But love allowed her to stay and build something beautiful from the ashes. Emma knew, with every laugh, every sunrise, every breath, that she had rewritten her own story. A story that didn't end in pain, but in peace. Not in revenge, but in redemption. Not in bitterness, but in the kind of love that survives everything and comes back stronger. Sometimes Ryan's mother would send packages for hope, gifts accompanied by letters Emma knew Ryan read, but never responded to. Emma believed that one day, when the wounds weren't so fresh, Ryan might be ready to at least talk to Margaret. Forgiveness was a journey, not a destination. But for now, they were focused on their own little family, on hope's first words and first steps, on building a company culture based on integrity and truth, on supporting others who had been wronged by systems designed to favor the powerful. Emma's nonprofit had helped over 200 people restart their lives after incarceration. She knew their struggles intimately because she had lived them, and nothing gave her more satisfaction than seeing someone else get their second chance. As Emma rocked hope to sleep that night, humming softly, she reflected on the moral she had learned through all of this. No matter how long lies remain buried, the truth always rises. And when it does, it exposes deceit, heals the broken, and restores what was stolen. A strong heart can survive betrayal, rebuild from ruins, and choose love again. Because real love doesn't die. It waits for honesty, grows through pain, and returns even stronger when justice finally takes its place. Emma kissed Hope's forehead and whispered, "You were born from a love that survived everything." Don't ever forget how powerful that makes you. Outside, the city lights glittered against the night sky. Inside, a family that had been torn apart and rebuilt was finally completely at peace. The end was just the beginning of everything beautiful. Thank you so much for following Emma and Ryan's journey with us. If this story touched your heart, please let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories about resilience, justice, and love. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Share this with someone who needs to hear that even broken things can be made beautiful again. From all of us here at Tales with Francis Stories, season's greetings to you and your family. Stay kind, stay safe, and remain blessed until we meet again in the next story.